Welcome to the Bek Lover podcast, where you might learn a thing or two about life. You never know who I'm going to bring into the studio walls, but you know that it's going to be someone worth listening to. And I have a special guest today. He's special because not only is he an interesting cat, he's a good friend of mine now for over 15 years, I believe. I met him in the nightlife. He is a veteran of nightlife, not only of New York City, but of London, and a very popular model at one point in his life. I think he's still better looking than 99% of men that are out there. I'm very happy to bring in my friend, Gary Spencer.
Hey, Bek. How you doing?
Gary, how you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling good. I'm very happy to be here today because you know that I think you're a very, very talented broadcaster. So it's good to be here, finally. Yeah.
I take that as a very nice compliment, Gary.
Yeah,
and I thank you for coming out here, trekking out to where our studio is located. We won't announce its location because we have a lot of people out there that probably would like to see Bek Lover maybe disappear off the airwaves. So we're going to keep this location of our studio a secret. But before we get into your life and all that other stuff, I kind of want to tell people how we met. I'm going to tell my version of events. You could tell your version.
That's a funny story in itself.
We met about 15 years ago through a mutual friend we both have, Samir Qureshi, also a king of New York nightlife, co-owner of Somewhere Nowhere, the most beautiful rooftop nightclub, I think, not only in New York, probably in the entire world. I mean, it's just gorgeous. You've been up there. You've seen it yourself.
It's beautiful, yeah.
It's on 25th Street between 6th and 7th. It's on the 38th and 39th floor of the gorgeous Renaissance. I mean, this thing has a world-class nightclub in it, rooftop, and a pool with absolutely stunning views of the city. And you feel like you can touch the Empire State Building. And not only is it a nightclub, but you can just go up there, hang out, have drinks, have coffee, have food. You can go for jazz night on Wednesdays, which is phenomenal. Full band, full ensemble, people of all ages dancing. I mean, the place does all kinds of, amazing events. So our mutual friend, I was doing an event that was booked by someone. I didn't know Samir at the time, and I didn't know you. And this person co-brokered a deal for me to throw a massive Albanian party that I called the Final Friday. I don't know if you remember the title of my party. And you and Samir, working together, were in control of the venue. I didn't know you guys, and I wasn't dealing with you guys. And I had a tradition of throwing a party on the last Friday of every year. So whatever that Final Friday was, that was my party. And that was the first one I had ever done. And the next night was New Year's Eve. So I threw a massive party one night before New Year's Eve. Now, this person that co-brokered the deal told me I would have the whole venue to myself. I'd be able to control my own door, which I would never take a deal unless I do because, the shenanigans that can happen in nightlife. You control the venue, then all of a sudden they're letting all kinds of people in for free because I had an entrance fee to get in there. It wasn't just like you could show up and get in like a typical door. It's a private event.
I remember.
Albanians, which are not easy to handle in nightlife.
I remember.
Most venues kind of run away from us, yes or no?
Yeah, for sure.
Why do you think that is, Gary?
I don't know. You carry on with the story, and then the listeners will know.
Typically because we're known, unfortunately, sometimes to fight at parties and get violent. I executed a tremendous amount of Albanian events, never had those issues, ever. So I go to meet with the club 3 days before the party, and I meet with the owner of this club called Ajna. You remember, Little West 12th?
Yeah, Ajna, yeah.
Formerly known as Buddha Bar at that time, right across the street from STK in the meatpacking district. It was a hot spot at that time.
Yeah, it was vibrant. Yep.
Massive venue. And the owner's like, who the hell are you? Now, I got 2,000 people coming, and he doesn't even know who I am. And I got about 30 grand invested into this event between performers and promotion and singers. And all of a sudden, Samir walks up to me and goes, you think you're going to throw your party? And he's with a nasty attitude. He didn't really know who I was either. He never met me. To make the story short, I waited for him outside. We had a little conversation, and the words of the Godfather, I made him an offer he can't refuse. So the party happened. They thought I was joking when I said I have 2,000 people coming. Now, Gary, you were there that night. The first time you ever met me, the first party I ever did. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I first met you, I couldn't fucking stand you. I'm like, this guy's arrogant. He's British. You always look like you were angry and shit. I don't know if you were just annoyed at me or whatever, but I'm like, damn, this guy doesn't. I was like, this guy can't probably fucking stand me. Like, you know, you just seemed very closed off when I first met you.
Yeah, everybody thinks that about me when they meet me.
And everyone, when they meet me, they think I'm like a psycho killer, but meanwhile, I'm a teddy bear. So, like, I've always believed you never. They always say like first appearances, first interaction. I don't think that's true. I think you can prejudge too soon when you meet someone. They might be having a bad day. They might not be as open when they first meet you. And I feel most of the time people meet me, their first impression of me is never a good one, usually, because I can come off a little bit, crazy or angry or aggressive or whatever. So I think you're proof that your first interaction, what I thought you were, was nothing like you are. You're actually a gentleman. I love you. I'm happy to call you my friend of 15 years. And we did a lot of events together. And I'm going to, this show's about you. It's not about me, but I just wanted people to know kind of how we met. What do you remember about that night? And what was your impression of me? Be honest. And it's okay if you think I was an asshole.
No. If I could just pick up on your last point. So your last point about how people are when you first meet them. We'll get into this a little bit later, but there's a reason why I'm like that when I first meet somebody. And it's a protection to myself. But my first memory of you that night was, so Frank, there's a guy called Frank McCaw who's the GM at Ajna, and he's still a dear friend. And he's now actually managing the Buddha Bar downtown, which they reopened, right?
He was that good-looking dude with the shaved head, right?
Yeah, I guess. He's tall and...
shaved head, right? At that time, or does he still have a shaved head?
Yeah, I don't know if he had a shaved head then. Anyway, so Samir comes to me that night, and he's like, Gary, like, this guy, this Albanian guy, like, he's huge and he's going crazy. I said, well, it's all right, not a problem, I'll speak to him. Now, that's why probably you met me in that mode, because I was already on the defensive, because I'd heard a lot about you from Samir, like, he's running around, he wants bottles, he wants this, he wants that. I said, all right, Samir, not a problem, I'll speak to him. So when I came to you, I was already being a little bit defensive. But one thing I will say was, and you know this, you've been in the business a long time, promoters always say they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to bring this, they're going to bring that. You had like hundreds of people flying through the door, taking up all this room. And I'm like, wow, man, this guy's really bringing it. So when you was talking to me, obviously I wanted to accommodate you in any way we could. But at the same time, we didn't want you taking over and just running amok, right? Which we didn't know because we'd never done business with you before.
And that door closed at 11:30.
Yeah, that's right. Always did, right?
Packed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was at capacity.
Yeah.
No fights, no incidents. 2,000 very well behaved Albanians. Yes or no?
Well, that's pushing it.
we had no fights that night.
No, there's no fight.
A lot of beautiful women.
Yeah, lots of beautiful women. Good vibe, and you were fantastic. Actually, you did what you said. You brought it.
Samir told me that we actually wiped out the bar that night. That the next day they had trouble for New Year's Eve. Like we literally wiped out the bar.
Well, that was just your table, right?
Well, I don't drink anymore, Gary. But through the years, we executed a lot of events, and that's kind of how our friendship started. And it is very rare in nightlife to meet guys like you and guys like Samir. Friendships that actually last. They're not artificial. The reason I fell in love with Samir, and when I realized he really was one of my best friends, if not my best friend, period, was when I did experience the loss in my life, and I lost my brother, and I just completely disappeared from nightlife. I mean, I wasn't anywhere to be seen for a couple of years, and he kept calling me, man. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, this guy knows I'm not doing parties no more. Mm-hmm. He has no interest for me anymore. He knows I'm not going to be making money, or we're not going to collaborate no more. Like, I'm retiring. And the fact he kept calling me just to come out, he's like, I just want to see you. I just miss you. And I'm like, this guy actually cares about me. As horrible as that experience was in my life, to lose my brother tragically. And again, I say brother because people don't understand the relationship. This guy was my uncle, but he was larger than life. He raised me. I was in his arms. I went through some old albums since I was a baby. So for me to have a friend like that, when I saw a lot of people's real colors, that was one of the blessings of that tragedy, was I really got to see who cared about me in my moment of destruction. Samir, you, people like you that were like, hey, man, we just want to know if you're all right. We just want to see you. Like, I don't care about all that stuff. Like, I miss you. I want to be around you. Like, I miss you, bro. And that's when I realized I had a brother for life.
Well, Samir is, I mean, listen, we all know about the people in nightlife, and it's a very cutthroat business.
It can be brutal and disgusting at times.
And Samir is a true gentleman. You know, he really is. I mean, and when you think about how, I mean, I learned so much from him because we think in different ways, completely different ways. I think very creatively. Samir's always about the numbers. The numbers have to make sense. The numbers have to make sense. So, but as a person, he's a genuine guy and very, very amicable. And yeah, anyway, it's enough about Samir. He's doing great.
Shout out to Samir.
Shout out to him.
We'll see you at the club.
He's smashing it at somewhere, nowhere. Good luck to him.
Gary, I want for the audience, because they always like to know about my guests, where they're from, kind of where their life starts, you know, what they've done. So where did life start for Gary Spencer?
South London. A very, very humble upbringing. Single parent mum who was first class to me, gave me all the love in the world.
Now, what type of neighborhood is South London at that time? When you say humble, is it like lower income? Like what?
Yeah, working class to lower income. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. I mean, thankfully, I was raised by a woman, and she helped me with my emotions. Probably more sensitive. But a lot of the kids around there ended up inside, in prison, violent. It's a violent neighborhood.
Is it still like that today?
Well, if she was still alive today, she wouldn't be there, or I wouldn't be here.
So it's still a rough part of London.
Rough. Yeah, rough.
What was it like growing up in that environment, being around dangerous elements? And I mean, did you go to school?
Yeah, I went to school. I was lucky, actually, because my next door neighbour, Richard, who I talked to actually about a year or so ago, he was intense, and he looked out for me when I was going to school. Yeah, you didn't mess with him.
He was a tough kid.
Yeah, very tough, and he's still very tough. And you didn't mess with him, which meant you didn't mess with me, because he was looking out for me, which was lucky. I was very lucky there. Yeah.
Shout out to Richard, man, if you're watching.
Yeah, Richard, good lad, still working hard. He's always worked hard, and he's always been a powerful force, yeah.
So what was it like being a young Gary? You're going to school, rough neighborhood. You got some friends that are looking out for you.
Going to school, rough neighborhood.
How did you manage to stay out of trouble?
Wasn't for me, really. Yeah, I just was constantly being reminded of the downside of it. And I had a strict mum. You know, she was very loving, but she was strict.
She was on top of you.
On top. And I actually left school at 14. Because I had to bring some money in. You know, I was lucky that I was well educated in English and math, but yeah, I left school and then just tried to find some work.
Do you remember what you first did when you left school?
I remember what I was doing when I was at school. I was on a milk round, and because in those days they used to deliver the milk to the houses, so I did a milk round, and then I was in construction because it paid the most money. So I was doing that.
So at 14 years old, you could work in construction in the UK?
Yeah, you're just doing it like you can do anything. You know, you always find a way if you had to find a way.
I'm sure they have child labor laws, though, right? How did you get around those?
Well, same way as I didn't got around paying tax. You found a way, you know.
So you're working all kinds of jobs to make some money.
Yeah, taking home money. And then the first job that I really wanted to do, funnily enough, was hairdressing. And it was at Vida Sassoon. And but the pay was £25 a week.
A week.
And Mum was like, ain't enough money. So then I went back to construction. And
can I ask you a question there?
Yeah, go ahead.
What happened to the pops? What happened to your pops? Why wasn't he in the picture?
Oh, I never knew my dad. Yeah, I never knew my dad.
Did you ever know who he was or find out? Did you know anything about
No,
him?
Mum never really talked about him.
Nothing.
No.
You ever curious about that?
Well, yeah, of course. As you get older, you get curious about it. But when you're growing up, all you're aware of is the love you've got within the house.
And that's not an easy thing to grow up with, to not know even who your dad is.
Oh, listen, it certainly affected me in my life, in my emotional decisions. Of course it did.
You ever try to find him?
No, he's going to be dead now anyway. And I honestly, like, he never helped my mother in any way financially. So
Is Spencer your mom's maiden name or his last name?
no, Spencer is actually my mother's second husband's name, who wasn't my father. Listen, man, it's very complicated, my upbringing, which has probably made me very complicated emotionally. You know, I would imagine so.
Absolutely. I mean, divorces affect people when kids know their father and their mother, let alone not knowing at all and being in a rough part of town. So that is, like, what I'm already hearing, probably the first struggle you had to overcome in your life.
Yeah. I mean, it was a struggle, but like I say, my home, my mother's home.
I mean, this is testament to how strong your mother was, because even here in America, the majority of crime committed come from single-parent homes, especially when there's not a male figure present.
Well, yeah. And when I think of strength in anyone, man or woman, like, so my mother lost 2 husbands, and she also lost a son at 15, and he died before I was born. But that was the culture that I was living in. Like, I was standing opposite probably the strongest person I've ever met. And I'm not saying that because it's my mother, because everyone thinks that about their mother, or they should do. But she was incredibly strong, yeah.
So she went through a lot of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And so you work all these years. What else do you end up, like, doing while you're in the UK?
Okay, so I was in construction, ducking and diving, really, making money. In fact, I put together a bunch of money to buy my mum's apartment for her when I was 18, so she didn't have to pay rent anymore, because the way I saw it is that she'd always looked out for me, and I didn't want her to look out anymore. I wanted to look out for her. So I was able to get her an apartment, and she lived there till the day she died. So that was
huge,
good.
guy. That's
Yeah,
huge,
no, it was
man.
good. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
huge.
Yeah, but in those days, let me explain that. Let me clarify that a little bit more. Margaret Thatcher, who was a polarizing figure in British politics, she brought in a scheme where if you'd been on the council for a number of years, you got a discount on the apartment. So my mother had always been on the council, because that's
What's the council?
The council is where you rent property. It's the equivalent to a project here. And so she'd always rented, and she always had a labour mentality, so that meant that she always rented. And so she got, like, she was eligible for a huge discount. So I got a place for a really good deal. And I was able to buy it for her. So yeah, that was great.
That must have been a great feeling to do that for her, no?
Yeah, it was a great feeling. Yeah. I mean, of course.
I think any normal kid, when you have decent parents who've done the right thing, it's your dream is to kind of repay them somehow. And I feel like what you did is one of the nicest things you can do, to secure their living quarters and take that kind of pressure off of them. So I'm sure she's smiling down on you, brother.
Yeah, but she was a lot older than me as well. Like, I mean, I know that may go without saying, but my mother had me at 42. So one of the reasons I did it was because when I was 18, she was already 60. So I wanted to look out for her. That was very important for me, because she was getting to an age where I didn't want her to work, right?
Most of 18-year-olds, no offense to them if they listen, they can't even wipe their ass, In today's world, I'm saying. And, that's, a very, very awesome thing that you did, bro.
Thank you.
So you continue with all that. You're working.
Yeah, so I'm working, doing construction, out and about, run into this girl. She's modelling up in London. Now, I say up in London because at the time I'm living out in South London, which is like 10 miles from the centre of West End, right? So I don't know about modelling and all that stuff. I don't. Anyway, she's modeling. She's doing well. She's a little bit older than me. I think she was like 27 or something, 28. I was like 21, 20, 21. So she said, oh, you should model. I said, well, I don't know about that. Anyway, so she arranged that I got some pictures done. And I did. And I got an agent. And funnily enough, Gavin Rossdale from Bush, the band Bush, he was at the agency then. And he was, wow, really pretty. Really pretty.
So he was modeling?
Yeah, he was modeling.
Before he became a famous singer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he did very well because he looks phenomenal now. But
what's their most famous song again? Bush?
Bush? I don't know, Glycerine or something like that. They had a few. They were huge, right? But funnily enough, I ran into Gavin. He played Webster Hall with Bush about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'd still been, you know that, I was still doing bits and pieces with Webster Hall back then. So I went to that show, and I said to his security, I said, do me a favour, let Gavin know that Gary Spencer's outside. And I'm thinking he ain't going to come out, because by now he's like, well, he's huge, right?
Superstar.
He came straight out. We had a chat. We was talking about his life, what he was going through at the time. And, yeah, he was good as gold.
Amazing. And you met him when you were modeling?
Yeah, I met Gav when I was 21.
He was similar age?
I think he's about, I think we're about the similar age, yeah. Yeah.
It's nice when people remember you and try, after all those, especially when they become world famous. And
yeah, but I have to say he was fantastic that night. He came straight out. We went straight into conversation as if I'd
And he didn't even know you were coming.
No, he had no idea I was coming.
It's awesome, man.
So when I said to the security, telling Gary Spencer's outside, I'm thinking he ain't even going to remember. But he came out and he was really lovely. And that meant a lot to me. And said a lot about him as a person too.
Shout out to Bush, man.
Yeah, Bush.
The whole team there.
Smashed it. And the funny thing is that I hadn't seen Gavin for years and years and years. And the last time I saw him in London, he was trying to get a gig in a place opposite where we were sitting in Chelsea. And they were like, nah, we're good.
Now they died out of him. For those of you that don't know where Webster Hall is in New York City, in the East Village. It's a legendary nightclub / event space. It's still open, still does weekly parties, concerts. Some of the biggest house DJs in the world are there. I want to beat up Al and his brother for letting this massive fly into my studio. But if we get a chance to kill that, I would like to, but we'll do that if it comes near me. I mean, look at the size of that thing, Gary. It's right there in front of you.
Where is it?
It's right there on that cord.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, don't keep my door open, guys. Thank you very much. Now.
That was with Samir as well, by the way, Webster Hall. That's another
Wasn't
great
it the Hanky Panky room or something? You guys
yeah,
were
but
doing?
that's another good story. That's a typical story of Samir and I, how we always thought differently. So, wow, you got that.
There he goes. He's gone.
Ow, my ears.
And leave that in the edit.
So, Lon Ballinger, who owns Webster Hall, he contacts Samir and I at Royale and says, listen, I would really like this market, those guys that drink bottles, do champagne, all that stuff. Now, we know that Webster Hall wasn't that venue, right? But they used to smash it all the same. Yeah. Huge respect to that
Just
family.
a different style of party.
Yeah, but they used to kill it anyway.
For years. I mean, we're talking decades.
Years.
And they're still open.
Yeah, and the history of Webster Hall, it was like, it's phenomenal. And Lon Ballinger and his family, phenomenal. And, by the way, Gerard, the GM there, McNamee, superstar. Anyway, so they contacted us and said, oh, could you come in? Could you do what you do at the other places? Now, Samir and I have always thought differently. So I had this one concept, he had the other concept. And I said, I'll tell you what, you write your proposal and I write mine. And whichever one they go for, that's what we'll do. And Samir agreed to this. And in the end, they wanted to go with my proposal, which caused a little bit of friction between Samir and I. Unfortunately, we didn't talk for a couple of years after that, but we're great now again. But yeah, so that's how Webster Hall started, and we called it the Hanky Panky. And yeah, man, some great people came through there. On opening night, somebody tapped me on the shoulder. They said, "Oh, Woody Harrelson's here." I said, "Oh yeah, of course he is." And but he was standing right there. Now it just so happened that week I'd built a VIP in the corner of the club, just with black velvet curtains. So I immediately said, "Hey, Woody, come with me," because I knew he didn't fancy any of that in amongst those people. And we went back there and we just talked about football, because I knew he was into football, soccer. And yeah, that was a good story.
American soccer, for those of you that have no idea what he's talking about. But you know, we kind of left off in the UK and we jumped to Manhattan. So
sorry about that.
How did you end up in Nightlife? So you're modeling. You meet the guy from Bush while you're modeling.
Oh yeah, so sorry about that.
Talk to me. You know, how do you end up in New York? So like, what goes on from the point in the UK where you're modeling? I mean, does your modeling career take off? Like, I mean, what?
Oh, well, yeah. But so the whole reason I was telling you about the modeling in London was because I was terrible at it. I ended up doing a video with the Bee Gees, which was a pop video, didn't really matter. It's called Boys Fall in Love.
So if I pull that up, you're in that video.
Yeah, I am.
How come I never knew this about you?
Well,
I mean, you're in that one song I love, which I love, by the way. I never knew until you posted it.
What, the Jules Michael song?
The Angel.
Gavin Friday.
Amazing song, man. I fucking love. I play it like twice a week. I swear to God, it's because of you.
Yeah.
But I never knew you were in it. And now you're telling me you were in a Bee Gees video, bro?
Yeah, Robin Gibb.
Guy, when the hell are you going to tell me all this shit?
Yeah, but it's all, yeah.
It's awesome stuff. Bee Gees, bro. You fucking kid like that.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I love them, bro. Like, they shaped the whole decade, those guys did.
Yeah, no, that was cool. It was Robin Gibb, Boys Fall in Love. But I did that in a couple of teenage magazine covers.
So why are you saying it was so terrible?
Well, it was terrible because, excuse me, it was terrible because I just wasn't working. I mean, I can't live off of one BG pop video and 2 magazine covers. So anyway, the whole reason I'm telling this story, in those days, if you had a composite card, which was your representative card as a model, so it had your picture on the front and 3 pictures on the back, it gave you license to go to certain clubs, and that would get you in. Now, it just so happened that Stringfellows had been open about a year, and they were giving memberships to models.
Stringfellows, I'm assuming, is a nightclub?
Yeah. It was owned by Peter Stringfellow, who was legendary. He was legendary in the north of England, and he opened Stringfellows.
Nightclub owner.
And so I'm thinking, well, Stringfellows is a great club. I'd love to be a member there. And so I took my composite card over, and they gave me a membership. So if anything good came out of those first couple of years as me failing as a model, because I failed as a model for sure, was getting that membership to Stringfellows, because it changed my life. Completely changed my life.
First moral of the story here, even when something doesn't go your way, you try to do something new, something good still came out of it, even though you considered it a failure for that time period.
Yeah, I mean, it changed my life. I'm in there one night, and as you know, I'm a fairly outgoing person. So Peter's director of operations, a guy called Roger Howe, incredibly stylish man. He just used to swan around in Yamamoto. Now, I know he won't mind me saying swan around, because he just that's how he was, Roger.
Float.
Yeah, he would float, and he would always be head to toe in Yamamoto, which was like the coolest designer at the time. So Roger and I would always be talking, and then one day he said, "How's the modelling going?" Now, me being me, I told him straight. I said, "Well, it's shit." And he said, "Well, come and work for us." I said, "What do you mean come and work for you?" He said, "Come and work for us." I said, "I've got no idea what I'm doing." He said, "I don't care." And he walked off. He came back about half an hour later. He said, "Be here Monday, 5 o'clock. I said, "I'll be there."
What was his involvement with the venue? He was the manager?
He was Peter's director of operations.
GM?
No, he was his director of operations. He ran everything. Stringfellow Enterprises.
Multiple venues.
Well, Peter had multiple things going on, like he had a record label, So I turn up. This is a great story. I turn up on the Monday, and he takes me down to the office, and the bars manager is there. He said, guys, Johnny Hackett was the bars manager. I remember him well. He said, here, John, this is Gary. He's going to work on the bar. And Johnny Hackett said, well, I haven't got any room. He said, well, find some room then. And that was it. I started working for Stringfellows. I got trained.
So this is how you started in nightlife?
Yeah, I got trained by the best bartenders I would put something down and they would move it an inch over. And they said, that's where it should be. I used to think, why are these people like busting my balls like this? The reason is because they taught me that behind the bar, everything has a place. And when you're busy, that's where you need to find it. And yeah, that was my introduction to nightlife.
So you started as a bartender?
I started as a bartender. And I became a very good bartender, yeah. And it was...
Now, this club, describe this club to us, man. How big was it? How did it look inside? What kind of people used to come there?
So this club, Stringfellows, it just turned out to be the club. And anyone that's ever been there, that had ever been there, will tell you. I mean, Peter went on to open in LA, he went on to New York, Miami, and it was just a phenomenal venue. Now, when I say that everybody went there, I mean everybody from Princess Diana and below.
You ever met her?
I hosted her in Peter's other club, which he opened a few years later at the Hippodrome, called the London Hippodrome.
See, that name was legendary. I even heard that name over here.
Yeah,
too.
well, the Hippodrome was loosely based. The Hippodrome was loosely based on Studio 54. It had an amazing lighting sound system. 2,000 people.
Now, what decades are we talking about here?
80s. Yeah, 80s.
And British music was kind of ruling again at that time. The new wave, right? That's what it was called, right?
Well,
I was waitressing at a cocktail bar. Well, I mean, that shit was big, no?
Yeah, but...
That much is true.
Yeah, but the 80s was pop. 80s was pop. Like, for instance...
Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, Wham, which is George's first band. I mean, George later, fortunately for me, became a friend later in his life. But Wham had their final party at the Hippodrome after playing Wembley Stadium. So that's where the Hippodrome and Stringfellows will always go down as legendary clubs in nightlife history.
They were the
worldwide.
top of the top at that time period.
Well, let me explain. So I'd walk into Stringfellows one night to do a normal day's work, and there would be Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye at the piano. And that was normal.
Like, it's not even open.
Well, it was open, but they would just
hang out.
Hanging and playing, because we used to have a piano on the top part of the restaurant, and the resident pianist was Queen's pianist, Freddie Mercury's Queen.
Wow.
Spike, his name was Spike Edney, and he still plays in Queen as I remember, with the other singer. I don't know who sings for Queen now, but anyway, so Spike is still in Queen with what's his name, the singer, the guitarist Brian May. Anyway, so yeah, Stevie Wonder would be in, Marvin Gaye would be in, Muhammad Ali would be in.
And these are all people you've met? Or been in the same room?
I never met Stevie or Marvin or Muhammad Ali, but I've hosted them and they've been in the same room. Yeah, Stringfellows was formidable. And the great thing about Peter, which is unlike a lot of owners and operators, he never minded how much money his staff made, because he always knew he was making 80% more, right? Because if you work your tips on like 20%. Now, the reason I've said that, those girls, now you've been in nightlife all your life.
20 plus years, yeah.
We're talking the 80s, right? Those bottle girls, those cocktail waitresses, some nights were taking £2,000 sterling.
Back then.
Back then.
5K. Which in today's world would be almost 10K. Dollars, US dollars.
So by night time they would
a lot of money.
by night time they were doing bottles and cocktails. When they were going home, their apartments were in Regent's Park. They were driving Mercedes. Their pets was a pot-bellied pig. Like, they lived an incredible life, which meant, obviously, if you're bartending, we weren't doing too bad either. So all of a sudden, where I thought I'd make plenty of dough modelling, I ended up smashing it to pieces being a bartender. And I was in my 20s.
And having fun. And you were a strapping young buck.
A strapping young buck, yeah. Yeah, no, those days were good because you had everything. You felt like a rock star. Yeah, you really did. You know.
What's the craziest thing you ever experienced during those years?
Craziest?
Like funnest, coolest. You know, you were in a room with some of the most important people in the world on a consistent basis. You have any cool stories you could tell us or what? Yeah, anything you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. In fact, one of those stories, and I'm not saying this for any other reason, that it's just a funny story. I mean, in some ways you'd have to be there. But I like my cars, but I've never really been interested in cars. So to me, it didn't really matter what I drove around in. And this particular time I was driving, for some reason, I don't know, I think my car may have been in the garage. But I was driving a Hillman Avenger, which was like a 400-pound car. It was a piece of junk, right? But I didn't care. And again, I would never park outside the club. But that night, I guess I couldn't get a spot. So I parked outside the club. Now, outside the club, in those days, was Lamborghini Countaches, Ferrari Testarossas, Bentleys, the whole night.
Choices.
Yeah, the whole night. And there was this Hillman Avenger, right, which was mine.
It's like a Yugo, basically.
Unbelievably bad car, but I didn't give a toss, so it was fine. Now, this was 1988, so we've jumped forward a little bit. We always used to host the Miss World party. Now, in those days, Miss World was...
Miss Universe today, right?
No, it was still Miss World.
Okay.
But it was watched by, I don't know, 1 billion people. That, you know, in those days, a beauty pageant was a big deal. Like these days, it's like frowned upon because life has changed. Politics have changed. Cultures have changed. But in those days, Miss World was huge. Now, the reason I'm telling this story is because the girl I'm going to talk about, I talked to a couple of days ago. So it's 1988. The previous year, 1987, we hosted the party. And I met Miss Iceland, right? And her name was Anna Johnston. Lovely girl. Great girl. And she came runner-up that year. So I was very pleased for her. Jump to 1988. Miss World's just finished. We're doing the party. In walks the current Miss Iceland, which is Linda. I think her name's Linda. I can't remember her second name, but her name's Linda. She just won it. She just won Miss World that night, and she walked in with Anna. So we're drinking at the bar, and she said, "Can we go somewhere else?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." So...
No, let me say no to 2 gorgeous supermodels.
No, but the thing is that she just won Miss World, and she was with the girl that came runner-up the year before.
Yeah, the 2 hottest girls in the world, okay.
It was pure nonsense. But I had to walk out the club past the doorman into my Hillman Avenger.
With those 2. With those 2.
And it was the funniest thing because they just looked at me like, and they kind of like, what? And I couldn't believe it, really.
You didn't think about taking a cab at that point? I drank a little bit.
No, that was after thing. Now, after thing was getting in that car. But you know.
Did they get in the car, guy?
Yeah, they got in the car. But the funniest thing about that is, and this is one real big misconception that men have, that I knew back then that they have. Men that actually think that women take notice of all that shit, they don't give a toss. They really don't. They think about if they're having a good time, if they're having a laugh. And that's about it. They don't even know what model a car is. They don't even know what side you drive on. That's no disrespect to women, by the way, but they don't really, that's not how they're thinking.
They feel comfortable, they feel safe, they're having a great time.
That's it.
You're a good host.
That's it. Yeah.
I agree with you. I always had nice cars, Gary.
Yeah, you do.
I'm saying, even when I was younger, I was very fortunate, but it never helped me get a woman. I either got them or I didn't get them. They couldn't see my car inside the nightclub or the bar or the restaurant.
I was just about to say that. It doesn't matter what you drive. You can't drive it inside the club.
Thank you.
You know,
and I think that's a very big misconception that, you might get that superficial, maybe gold digger that's into that type of stuff, but where's that going? It's not an authentic experience. I think when people meet you and they don't know what you have and you connect before they even realize it, those situations are a little more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a hilarious story, man. You took two of the top competitors and winner of the world competition and put them into a hoopty.
Yeah, but it's just a funny story, and I'm really thankful that I'm friends.
Still friends with them?
Yeah, I'm still friends with Linda, and Linda was going to be. Linda was running for president of Iceland. Not so
Shout
long
out
ago.
to Iceland, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
You ever been?
I've never been. I'd like
need to go.
No, I said to her actually the other day when we was having a conversation, I really should go.
Maybe I'll come with you.
Yeah, she's doing fantastic. No, she's doing fantastic, and
they were running a promotion for a while. Like if you would just stop, like you take Iceland Air, and you stop in Iceland on the way to like Europe. They made They made it. I don't know if they're still doing this promotion. I know they were doing it before the world closed.
Mm-hmm.
They were making it very inexpensive if you would stop and spend 2 days in Iceland, 2 or 3 days. You had to stop, and you would continue with Iceland Air, and they made the ticket like almost free. And it was a really nice promotion. I think it helped boost their tourism tremendously.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful place. I've seen
man,
a lot of pictures and videos.
When you see the pictures of Iceland, it's fantastic.
And they say like Iceland's the opposite. Like Iceland's really more green, and Greenland's more ice. What I'm understanding.
I don't know, but it's not far from us, is it? It's not far.
How long did you work in the nightlife during that time, guy?
That was it. That was me. So then I stayed at Stringfellows for a number of years. Ran into some very, very interesting people, which started to, carve my personality, I guess, and
did you like move up in positions from bartender to?
Yeah, I did, and also I was, I always like to stay. I always want to look and drive myself more, always, and Peter was opening the Hippodrome, and I ended up going over to the Hippodrome and looking after reception there, which was a lot of fun.
So what did you do there?
Met some great. So this club it held 2,000 people, and I was the reception manager there, and it was my say who came in, who didn't come in.
Reception meant like you were like the head of like
everybody that came in. So 2,000 people. It's a lot of people, and obviously, when you're dealing with that number of people, you've got to really manage what's going on inside. Like the vibe is everything, right? Because that's a lot of people to control.
And a couple of rotten apples can destroy the whole thing.
Correct. So I was always very aware who was going in. Roger, who I mentioned earlier, he used to stand there a lot of the time with me and second guess me, which was great because I admired and respected those guys immensely. And I knew they knew what was right. But I felt that I always got it right about that vibe inside.
So you were running that door.
Yes, and in doing that, it taught me a lot about people because I would try to talk to as many people as I could to see how they interacted with me. Meaning that if I said hi to them, if they were polite and they responded in a positive manner back to me, no problem. But if they were a little bit arrogant or kind of looked at me, I thought, wow, if that's them now and they're sober, what are they going to be like when they're drunk? So
very interesting.
Yeah, so that was my how I used to get into the psychology of people.
So it wasn't even about how they looked so much.
I couldn't care less.
Fashion and all that, because a lot of times clubs can be
and
rough about the way someone dresses, or not with those shoes, or not with that dress, or like in the movie 354, not with that shirt and that infamous scene.
Well, yeah, but I mean, okay, so let's take this a little bit further. Back in those days, some nightclubs, particularly in South London and Central London, you had to wear a jacket and tie to get in. Well, does that stop somebody being a psychopath then because they got a jacket and tie on?
No.
I mean, no. So you have to talk to people to find out how their mind's working, what they're wearing. Anyone can buy a jacket and tie.
Designer stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that was my coup, really. I used to like talk to as many people as I could, find out what's going on with them. But by doing the Hippodrome, I did actually get to meet more people because I wasn't behind the bar. So now I was in and amongst.
You're in the mix. Yeah.
Yeah. So another great story, Eddie Murphy. So Eddie Murphy.
Now
Eddie Murphy.
Before you start this story,
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy, my childhood friend, her father was his manager.
Oh, really?
And her mother owns, and I'm going to bring you there because it's on the Upper West Side, the Comic Strip Live. Is the oldest comedy club in New York after Dangerfield's closed. It's where Eddie Murphy was discovered, and her family was his first manager.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and,
Obviously, I didn't know that.
The Comic Strip Live, and all the greats in comedy were discovered at this place.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So I just find it kind of cool that you have an Eddie Murphy story. And
I didn't even know that.
So, yeah. Actually, in his music video, you can see him. Tynan was his name. He was the founder of the Comic Strip Live and his manager. He's in the music video with him when my girl wants to party all the time, party all the time. And he's in the movie Beverly Hills Cop at the end. He had, gray hair and full head of hair. And shout out to Gene, Comic Strip Live. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff out of there, actually.
Okay. I think you mentioned that.
New studios going up in there, and we're going to be doing a lot of interviews outside. It's an amazing place to go, man. A lot of history. We got to go.
Okay.
Great place to get a drink, too. They just renovated the whole bar. Actually, you're the guy I need to talk to. You need to meet Gene.
Okay.
Need some help.
So Eddie Murphy.
Sorry for that tangent.
Yeah, it's okay. It's good, and I'm glad you told me about it. So at this time, you got to imagine, well, I think now we're in the late part of the 80s. Eddie Murphy was bigger than God, right? He was huge.
Fucking king, bro.
So he was running with a huge entourage. Now, when I say huge, I mean like 35 or 40 men, and they all dressed very similar. So now 40 people inside the Hippodrome is not very many, but to me, coming in the door was a lot of people.
Yeah, one group, it can be a problem if they get out of hand.
Yeah. Now, but they're with Eddie Murphy, right? So they're pretty cool people, and they're getting down, and they used to leave with 1 million girls a night. In fact, some newspaper picked it up and it was probably nonsense, as newspapers are, that they were going back to Eddie's hotel room and they were having auditions.
Paparazzi stuff.
Yeah, auditions and all that. But anyway, so one night,
they were leaving this club all the time with gorgeous women.
Yeah, they were in. They came night after night after night while Eddie was in London.
It's like shooting ducks in the barrel. If
Crazy.
I was a part of his entourage, I'd be doing the same fucking thing.
Crazy. But so one night, Eddie's leaving, but his car's not ready. Now, my office used to be to the side of the door, really, but it was obviously away from the club. But I could see on the cameras who was coming in and out, because sometimes I just needed to go in there and reset, And so Eddie's car wasn't here. So I said, come in here. So he was where you are now, and we're sitting and talking, just talking about any old nonsense, really, to take up the time until his car arrived. And I always remember when he got to leave, I got up, I shook his hand, I said, all the best, Ed. And he just went into that laugh, And it was the funniest thing. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, well, you're here, you're working here, and you're wishing me good luck. I said, well, what else am I going to do? And that was a really nice way that was his last night in the club. And that was a really nice way to leave him. On another night, Prince also came in for 4 or 5 nights. And on his first night, he was up. So the Hippodrome was on 4 floors. And on the top floor, we had a restaurant. And he was up there. And I got a call down. They said, Gary, can I speak to you? I said, yeah, what's up? They said, well, Prince is up on the balcony. He's throwing peanuts at people. And I'm like, well, tell him not to. And they're like, well, yeah, but it's Prince. I said, okay, I'll come up. And he was good as gold. Now, the funny thing about Prince is, years later, cut to New York City, 2010, I get a call. I'm at Norwood now. I'm looking after Norwood on 14th Street,
Yeah,
which is
I
a private.
partied there a few
Yeah,
times.
it's a private
The
members
one
club.
with the chandeliers.
Yeah, it's on 5 floors.
Oh, I'm sorry, Norwood, the private
Yeah.
members only, like the
Yeah.
Soho House. Yes, I was there many nights with Samir.
So unfortunately, it's closed now. And the owner, Alan Lynn, is still a very dear friend.
Gentleman, man.
Yeah.
He was a fucking gentleman. What a
Yeah.
great venue. What a great experience. Organic, just for those of you that understand, Norwood was like a members-only townhouse right in the heart of the meatpacking district, one of the hottest neighborhoods in the city. And it's like this oasis for artists and
Yeah.
people that just want to chill.
Yeah.
And you go in there, they have a nice bar, 4 floors, all different types of rooms, outdoor area, patio, great food,
Yeah.
great drinks.
Yeah.
And the host and the owner, his name again?
Alan Lynn.
I met him a few times.
Yeah.
Just a class act, man.
Yeah, Alan's actually out of Glasgow in the UK. Very dear friend, still a friend.
Shout out.
And he created a beautiful club there.
City lost a treasure.
So anyway, one night I get a call. It's quite late. It's Prince's people. They said, "Oh, we got Prince. We'd like to come in." And it's getting late. And I said, "Oh, really? Okay, cool." I said, "But do me a favour. We close at 4. Don't keep me waiting." "Oh, no, it's okay. It's good." So they turned up and he walked in and his security were hanging to the back. I said, "Do me a favour." I said, "When you get upstairs, whisper in his ear that I hosted him 20 years ago in London, 20 plus years ago in London." They said, "No way." I said, "Yeah." He came to the Hippodrome. And as you know, it's well storied that he's a shy guy, Prince, you know. And when he walked down, he just gave me that little wry smile that he had and he just carried on walking. But he came in 3 or 4 nights. On the last night, he came in alone, the club was empty, and he asked the DJ, Christopher Seeley, who's still an amazing DJ, just to play for him, and he just danced for this girl. There was just him, Chris the DJ, and just this girl, and he was just dancing for her alone, which is, again, a lovely story. And that was a very, very special night for Chris, I know, because like Prince was one of his idols, you know. So he was just playing for just that.
Amazing artist, man.
Yeah, I saw.
I love that song, Raspberry Beret. I still listen to it all.
Yeah, I saw most of his tours. He for me, probably one of the most talented artists ever.
Performer, dancer, just everything.
Amazing guitarist, and such a sad loss there, Prince. You know, if we could go back to Stringfellows a little bit with Peter.
Can you tell us a little bit about him? I mean, what's his story? How did he end up in nightlife?
Okay, so Peter started in nightlife he used to rent church halls. So we'd find just like church halls in the north of England, and he would hire bands to get bands to play, and he would sell tickets.
He started as a promoter.
Yeah, and he was losing money. He wasn't getting any business at all. Then all of a sudden, he booked a band that happened to be the Beatles.
Wow.
And the Beatles recouped all the money he had lost and then gave him the money to go again and go again and go again. Till eventually he started to buy a nightclub. And I think he
used to throw parties like with the Beatles consistently?
No, but that
gave
gave him the money to go again and book the next band. And of course, by now he's booked the Beatles. So after that, it's like anything. If you remember James Corden's Carpool Karaoke, now if you've got any knowledge about how that all started, years ago he did a thing with George for charity, and he got George to sing. So when that idea came over here and he did Carpool Karaoke, I think the first artist he got was Mariah Carey. But until he got Mariah Carey, nobody wanted to do that. And once Mariah Carey was in, okay, so everybody's in. And that's the way it's like me as a model. Okay, let me tell you a quick story about me as a model when I got to America. So anyway.
Well, how did you get to America? We need to get to that part.
Okay, how did I get to America? So I stayed in hospitality. So after the Hippodrome, I took a break for a little bit, but I still bartended, and I wanted to get completely away from nightlife. Now, you'll understand that, because it was just being the person I wasn't into drugs, so I wasn't, staying up all night. Even if I left the club at 4 or 5 in the morning, I was always up at 9 or 10 to do my training. So even then, though, and my mates would tell me, like, I don't know how you do it. Well, I did it because I wanted to do it, but I would always be up and out by 9 a.m. I'd be in the gym at 10 a.m. So, but I needed to get away from nightlife, that was for sure. And I just ended up bartending in bars and stuff. And in the end, I ended up at the Hard Rock, and I was bartending there.
In the UK?
In the UK, in London, the Hard Rock Cafe.
But such a step down.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, a step down in some ways, but the thing is about that is that the Hard Rock, and not many people know this, the Hard Rock Cafe in London was the first Hard Rock. 1971 it opened. A lot of people think the Hard Rock Cafe is an American company.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, the first one was in London. It was owned by Isaac Tigran and Peter Morton, and that's what started the Hard Rock franchise. And it was the cool, not because I worked there, but I know this for a fact. The Hard Rock London was the coolest venue. I'll tell you why. We used to do all the outdoor events for the rock concerts. So Live Aid had a history of doing the catering for Live Aid, the Berlin Wall, all the Guns N' Roses shows. It just did all the catering. And what they used to do was they used to build an exact replica of the Hard Rock backstage, and it had the memorabilia, it had the tablecloths, it had the menu, the servers were wearing the same gear, and the stars would come backstage, and that's where they'd have their hospitality, their drinks and their food.
And they felt like they're in a Hard Rock.
Yeah, and I remember one night we was doing, I think it was the night of 1,000 guitars or something with Slash and Guns N' Roses, and I was working that event, and I remember Robert Palmer. Now, we had TV screens to the side of the bar.
Robert Palmer was in the Simply Irresistible.
Yeah.
I know my shit now.
Yeah, you do. And that night, Robert Palmer was at the bar. Actually, John McEnroe, the tennis player, was at the bar eating a burger, and I was talking to John McEnroe, and I was thinking, well, this is crazy because McEnroe, like, he's legendary. And then Robert Palmer comes up, and he says, can I have a double brandy? So I said, yeah, sure. So I gave him a double brandy, and he drinks it like, boom, in one. And he said, can I have another one? And I'm thinking, yeah, sure. Give him another one. And we had the TV screens to the left and right of the bar, so we could see who was on stage. 2 minutes later, I look up, and he's on the stage, and he's doing that song, Simply Irresistible. And I'm thinking, wow, man, he was just here just now. You know, it's one of those crazy things. Like, you don't, it's a side that you never see. Now, years later, being in New York, and now I'm a friend of George's and his family, more so his sister than anybody. I remember driving into the back of Madison Square Garden in an SUV with that crew and seeing the fans waiting for the show. Now, it's a bit like going on an aeroplane. When you go on an aeroplane, if you turn left, you don't ever want to turn right? And that concert spoiled rock concerts for me, because once you go in that way, you don't ever want to go in that way. I did that
for the first time in my life, going through the back entrance and with the artist for the Jingle Ball this last winter, December, with Ava Max. I was her guest. Shout out to Ava Max, fucking rock star, pop star. She's epic, and blessed to call her my friend, blessed to call her my sister, and her brother Denny, and the whole Kochi family. So they took. I mean, I went backstage. I'm hanging out there. Martha Stewart walks by. And I'm like, Martha, I don't mean to bother you. So I just have one question for you. She's like, what? I said, how the hell did they send you to jail? And Nancy Pelosi's not in jail. She started dying laughing. I know, right? I know. I'm like, yeah, I know. An amazing experience, man. Mm-hmm. Just a joke, guys. Don't get your panties in a bunch. But you're right. Sometimes it's like me. The first time I flew first class, I didn't fly because I wanted to fly first class. I didn't want to spend the money. Mm-hmm. But it was my birthday, and I was flying back because I had just lost a really tragic situation. My first cousins came off of a mountaintop. 16-year-old died. Her father passed away. And I had just come back from Albania, and I literally 2 days later got on a plane and flew back. It was my birthday. That night that I was flying back, I'm sad. I'm exhausted. I'm like, well, I'm spending my birthday going through a really sad situation, and I know I'm going to need my energy when I get off this plane, because to get to Albania, still no direct flight to Kosovo. So I'm like, I might as well just pay for the upgrade. Let me sleep because I'm going to need my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I get on the flight, and I never flown first class before. And I guess I'm a little large. So I guess I hit the do not disturb button, which means they won't wake you up. So I'm sleeping. I wake up halfway over the Atlantic. I'm fucking starving. But I'm thinking, hey, I'm in first class. They have all kinds of great food, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is on Turkish Airlines, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I get off. I wake up in the middle of the night, Gary. We're flying over the Atlantic Ocean. Everyone's asleep on the whole plane. I'm starving. So I get up. I'm like, I'll take my dinner now. They go, sir, you put the do not disturb button. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't touch nothing. I must have accidentally touched it. She's like, sir, we can get, I know even in coach, if I'm really hungry on international flight, I can get up, go back to, you got anything left over? And they'll give you another, they've done it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in first class, Gary. She goes, no, I'm sorry. Like, dinner was served. I'm like, I'm starving. She pulls out a little bowl of Snickers and Twix on a first class flight, bro. I was pissed. On the flight back, I was like, listen, if I touch a button, I want to eat. So now I always like double check. That was my first experience. But the overall experience of being able to wake up refreshed and having the extra room and traveling like a human being, I can never fly coach again, brother. I never will. Never have since that day, since that first. So when you say about being spoiled, once you open up that box, it's hard to go back the other way, man.
Yeah, I mean, I brought out that story. I think I've only ever flown first a couple of times, unfortunately, but it's the way to go. But my whole point of that story is that if you go and see a concert in that way, it's definitely the way to go. I mean,
it's amazing.
But going back to Norwood. Oh, so no, we've missed a big chunk here. So let me go back. Go back. I'm at the Hard Rock. Great job, love doing it, but I'm over it. I'm over it. And a couple of times people have. So in the Hard Rock, and I don't mean, and you know me differently, so I don't mean this in any particular way, but the Hard Rock was always full of tourists, and they'd always want their picture taken with me for some reason. Oh, can we have a picture with you? Can we have a picture? Now, also at that time, a couple of agents had tried to scout me.
But you always feel like they're scamming you or they're up to some shenanigans.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and don't forget,
people will stop you in the mall,
And don't forget, 12 years previously, I'd had not a bad experience of modeling, but I wasn't doing any good. I wasn't making any dough. So anyway, this one agent says, well, you should model. And I said, well, I'm good. I've got a good job. She said, what'd you do? I said, I'm at the Hard Rock. Oh, really? I said, I'll tell you what. You represent me. I won't give that job up. And if I start to work, great. Now, by this time, my hair's salt and pepper, right? Which is grey and dark for those of people who don't know that expression.
George Clooney-ish.
George Clooney-ish, yeah. And so she starts to rep me. A week later, I book a European commercial, and it's for Thompson Electronics, and it was a big commercial. And that was the only job to this day that I ever did in modeling where they paid me cash, and they paid me a big chunk of cash. And my memory of that is I'm in the cab going home, and my agent called me. She said, you got my 20%. I'm thinking, wow, I'm not even home yet. But anyway.
She did her job.
Yeah, she did her job. Not only did she do her job, my other memory of that job was they cut my hair to a number 1, which is crew cut. And I had to wake her up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I said, Annette, and her name's Annette Russell. And the reason why I'm mentioning her by name was because she had the most incredible eye in the business. How she took me, because I think I'm a bunch of bad bits put together that when you look at it, it's quite interesting. But Annette managed me perfectly. She always knew how to market me. And she did a deal with those people who shot that commercial that they also paid me every week until my hair grew back to where it was, which is mastery in my mind. And so that got me off and running in modeling. And now I felt that I was doing okay. So much so that I went into the Hard Rock one night and this guy wanted something and he started whistling down the end of the bar. Now, you know how I can be. So he's whistling and he's snapping his fingers.
Like you're a dog.
I went over to him and I said, can I help you? And he said, yeah, I want a drink. I said, oh, sorry, I thought you'd lost your dog, funnily enough. He said, what? I said, I thought you'd lost your dog. And I walked away from him And I said to the guy I was working with, I said, I can't be here anymore. I'm done. He said, yeah, we'll talk about it later. I said, no, I'm done now. And that was it. I got my coat. And when I left, I thought, wow, now I've really got to make this modelling work.
You burned your boat.
Yeah, and I owned a place in London, and I really had to make it work, and I did. I just took it as a job.
Took it serious.
Took it real serious. I used to change for my castings. I used to turn up.
Go to auditions.
Yeah, and and I had a decent career. I was in Paris. I was in Milan, smashing it. And then...
And you're modeling for like all types of companies, right?
Yeah, in London, yeah, I did a lot of... really nice campaigns, and then I had a meeting at Claridge's Hotel with an agent from New York called Click, and I went to meet them. They said, we'd love you to come to New York, da 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 da. Fantastic. When I was meant to come, my sister died. Now, I wasn't very close to my sister, but we were so proud of each other. Like, when I used to, she lived in Germany. When I was about to go there, she would always tell everybody, my brother's coming. But she was never like that to me. But we had this huge respect for each other. And so I was meant to come to New York, and she died, and I had to deal with her funeral and everything. And funnily enough, I didn't even tell. A lot of people listening to this won't even understand this, but this is a crazy story. My mother had just been diagnosed with lung cancer just before that. Now, my mother's in her late 70s at this point. So I was looking out for my mum, but I couldn't tell my mum that my sister was in trouble because I didn't want to make that worse for my mother. So I dealt with all my sister's funeral, all her death. My mother didn't even know. And one day I took my mum out to lunch, and she just dropped her knife and fork, and she said, Chris is dead, isn't she? I said, how did you know that? She said, I just guessed it. I just felt it.
Wow. Mother's intuition.
Yeah. And so I didn't get to New York when I was meant to get there. And when I got here, Click were very nice. They did all the paperwork, blah, blah, blah. But they kind of like weren't doing anything for me because I got here later. And they said, oh, the market's changed and all that. So my first 6 months in New York, I didn't do anything. I lived in a hotel, a very modest hotel. I got really badly sick. And when I got really badly sick here, I remember laying in that hospital bed. I didn't know anybody in New York. And now you know that I know a lot of people in New York.
Everybody now, yeah.
And I thought, that's it. I'm not going home now. I'm going to stay here, and it's going to work. And
while you're sick, when most people say, fuck this, I'm going home.
Yeah, no, that was it. No, and my mindset is one of my, I would say, main attributes is I got a very positive, stubborn mind. And once I've set my mind that that's what I'm going to do, then that's what I'm going to do. And I sat in that bed and I thought, that's it. I'm going to stay here now. I'm going to make it work. 2 weeks later, I walk into Click. Now, you've got to understand, I hadn't done a day's work in months.
6 months.
Yeah, in months.
And you
nothing.
have to survive here.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, I put a bunch of dough to the side, and I said to myself, when that dough goes, I'm done. I had a bunch of dough to the side. I walk into Click, and they had a superstar booker there, a guy called David, and he only dealt with like the models that were really smashing it, right? He'd never said a word to me to that day. In 6 months, he'd never even said hello to me.
Not even acknowledge your presence.
Nothing, because I was a minion. I was a model, yeah, but I wasn't working. And he came over to me and said, Banana are casting tomorrow, Banana Republic. He said, you should go. I said, what? He said, yeah, you should go. He said, they want young kids, but you should go. Okay. I remember calling in that night to the agency to get the details, and they were like, oh, you shouldn't be going to that. Da, 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 da. Anyway, they gave me the details. I went. I ended up booking it. That job recouped all the money I'd spent and I'd lost, and it gave me enough money to live here for the next year. So that,
just one job. Yeah.
So that set me now in New York because I knew I had my rent paid. I knew I'd be good. And from there, I started to move. And again, going back to what I said earlier, once Banana had booked me, all the other guys wanted to book me. I hadn't changed. I was exactly the same person. But again, that's just human nature. Oh, Banana used him? We'll use him. And that gave me a 14-year career as a model.
And that's not easy to pull off, brother. Not in that world, even to this day. I got friends that are models.
Yeah.
What did it feel like, though, brother?
You
saw yourself on billboards?
Yeah, I mean, okay, seeing myself on billboards. So I was lucky enough, by now I'm old enough to separate what I look like as an image and what I am as a person. So when you see yourself on a billboard, it is a little bit weird, but you distance yourself from it. But the best feeling for me about seeing Banana up everywhere you go, and in those days, as you know, the catalogue was like that thick, and it was everywhere. They've scaled down a little bit now. There's not
every doctor's table from here to China.
Yeah. So the best feeling for me about that was when I grew up with my mum back in that humble council estate in South London, watching Kojak on black and white TV. I never even thought I would get to America, let alone be able to live in New York, but definitely not see my picture all over New York, all over America. That was the craziest feeling for me, and the most beautiful feeling in a way. It's like, wow,
It's like if I never do anything else.
Yeah,
I did this.
That's it.
And that feeling, I've just felt it in the last couple of months. Seeing my video shared all over the world. It's such a overwhelming feeling that I said to myself, if I never do anything else, I had always said I want the world to hear my voice. By the time I'm 40, on the dot 40, it happened when I least expected it. So there's something to say about never surrendering, never giving up. You had a million reasons in your life to give up. You had a rough upbringing, in the sense that you didn't have a traditional family in the beginning with the dad and the mom, and you grew up in the rough part of town. You had a lot of ups and downs, and this is what I want people to get from what we're talking about. Yeah, these stories are amazing, but you're now in the mainstream as far as modeling is concerned. I mean, I've seen some of your pictures, bro. I mean, you're definitely extremely handsome. You're in a lot of different music. You're in that one music video I love because you posted it. I mean, you start doing a lot of really cool things. Do people notice you, or girls, or take me into that a little bit. Was there any perks, any benefits?
Well, no perks or no, but let me clarify what I just said though. I mean, I was working with some in that particular period of my life. I was working with some very, very big models, Cindy Crawford, Heidi Klum. I did a TV commercial with Cindy. That actually was back in London for German Railway. With Heidi, I did an editorial, which was pretty cool. By no means, I just want to put this out there, by no means was I up there like amongst the top of the top, but I was doing very, very well in my market. Yeah, I can't complain. I had a very, very good run, and I'm very happy that I did it. Is there any perks? No, not really, because I feel I've always been lucky. I feel that I've always moved in certain areas where I've been around interesting people. So no, I didn't use modeling as a perk. I thought it was great to have the freedom that modeling gives you, i.e. that you don't work every day. And again, some guys did work every day. I didn't work every day, but I certainly worked enough where I paid my bills, and it gave me the freedom to do other things which I wanted to do, which was like, I love doing music. That was a lot of fun for me. I did that for a long, long time. In fact, I put a lot of my early life into music, and that gave me the freedom to do that. And I just like doing my thing. I like going off to the beach and just spending a lot of alone time, which I think is very important to you. Like, I work a lot on mindset like you do. But no, modeling didn't give me any direct perks. It just gave me a very good life in where I was in control of my life, i.e. that, yeah, sure, my agent made my decisions, but ultimately it was up to me if I wanted to do the job. And I give you an example by that now. I adored my mum, and when she was still alive, and by now I'm living in New York, they booked me for a job. It was for Bergdorf Goodman, and those guys were doing really good books, and it was around Christmas. And I think they were going to give me $5,500 for the day, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money now, but it was a lot of money then. And they said, "Oh, you're doing Bergdorf's tomorrow?" I said, "No, I'm going to go and see my mum." And they couldn't understand that at all. But I'm glad I did it, because she died 2 years later, and $5.5 grand ain't never going to pay for that.
No.
$5.5 million ain't going to pay for that. It's your mother, you know, and I completely adored her. So yeah, just that freedom, the freedom to make decisions. Yeah, for sure.
Do you still work in nightlife during those years, or are you just fully modeling?
No, fully modeling, and I always had a thing about that. So when I was,
were you going out though for fun?
Yeah, I'd go out.
I mean, you were here modeling. For me, I think the 90s was the climax of nightlife. I don't care what anyone says. I wish I could have caught more of that time period. I got to see the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were in New York City when you had Peter Gation,
Mm-hmm.
legendary nightlife figure,
Mm-hmm.
the Limelight, Club USA, the Tunnel, Sound Factory, and I can go on and on and on. Roxy. Did you go out at all?
You know, this is funny, and it's going to lead to another kind of funny story, which for some reason, these things would only really happen to me. And my pals that know me and grew up with me said, well, that would only happen to you. I remember a story going back to London, and another dear friend of mine, nightclub owner, Jake Paniatu. Now, Jake, I'm going to give him a shout out, because he also had a really, really top club in London called Brown's, and a lot of celebrities went there. And I was in there one night with a pal of mine, Mackie, who was also a good model. He taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Gaz, Kevin Spacey's over there." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." Now, no disrespect to Kevin Spacey, great actor, but he never did it for me as an actor. So I wasn't really interested. I was like, "Okay, yeah, great." He tapped me on the shoulder 2 minutes later. He said, "Gal, no word of a lie, Al Pacino's right behind you." I said, "Yeah, of course he is." He said, "No, Gal, he's right behind you." So I turned round, and instinctively, I said, "Hello, how are you?" And he looked at me. I said, "Do you want a beer?" And he just looked at me and said, "Yeah, I'll have a beer. I'm sitting over there." So I went to the bar, ordered him a beer, went back to his table, dropped his beer down. He said, "Why did you buy me a beer?" I said, "What?" And I don't know where this come from, Bek. I said, "Well, it's people like you that make people like me want to go to the movies." He was like, "Wow, man, that's really cool." I said, "Well, it's the truth." That was it. It's a quick exchange. I let him do his thing. He was there to do, he was making a film with Kevin Spacey at the time called Looking for Richard, I think it was, and they just finished. So that's why it was there. But that was one of the things where, like, weird things used to happen to me like that.
But that only can happen in the nightlife.
Yeah.
And the people don't understand the seduction to it. Like, for me, I got past the drinking phase of it, where it was just full debauchery, drinking, women, blah, blah, blah. For me, the reason I'm still in the nightlife is because I feel like you can interact with people in a way, if you know what you're doing and you're authentic, you can connect with people in a way that you can't in the ordinary days, the ordinary hours of the day.
Mm-hmm.
People kind of let loose. You kind of can see another side of them that is very intimate, because I'm seeing you maybe at your worst. You're drunk, you're out of your mind, or whatever the case may be. You might be more unfiltered, more honest with what you're saying. When people are drunk, they tend to speak their mind, or what's deep in their soul, I believe. So for me, that's always been a seductive part of the nightlife. I also have an Al Pacino story. I always heard a rumor that his best friend was Albanian, right? But Albanians, we want to claim everybody. It's just the way we are. We're small people that's been stepped on. So if there's any ounce that we can grab someone and say that, 9/11 happens, he's doing a benefit at my college, which is really big in film, Pace University. They have Inside the Actors studio, right? That's filmed at Pace. So they're doing an event there, and I'm like, I'm going to fucking meet Al Pacino, and I'm going to become friends with this guy. Make the story short, I wait in front of that side door in 2 days. All of a sudden, I'm about to give up, and I'm going to post the picture on the podcast. So if you want to watch the video here, you're going to see the picture of me and Al. All of a sudden, I'm about to give up, and then I just see him, Chaz Palminteri, and I forgot who else was with him.
Chaz, Bronx Style.
Yeah, walking down the block, and I'm like, fuck. It's like the first time I'd ever really met a superstar, right?
Whoa. Let me just stop you for a minute. You haven't had Catherine on your podcast, have you? Catherine Narducci.
No, I would love her. I'm a huge fan of hers, bro. I think she's amazing, But what a phenomenal actress. And just like she screams New York, man. And I would love to meet her.
Yeah,
and I know you're a good friend of hers.
Yeah, good friend of Catherine.
We got to get her on the show. And I know she does things with Chaz.
Yes, she does.
And
still.
my cousin Bek, older, you never met him. Basically, bro, he influenced a lot of my personality also. He was always in my life through my uncle, my brother that passed. And this guy knows everybody, bro. He introduced me to everybody. And he's very good friends with Chaz. I wait in front of that door. Chaz Palmentieri, Al Pacino, and I forgot who else they were with. They're walking down the block on the side of Pace University, and I just get started. I couldn't even talk for the first time. I'm such a big fan of Al Pacino's. I think I've met a lot of actors in my life. You have too. I've met a lot of celebrities. My experience was very authentic with him, very humble. You know, Mr. Pacino, I'm a big fan of yours. I waited here for 3 days just to meet you. Well, he goes, well, I got to give you 3 minutes then, at least. And hung out, you know, spoke to me. He was just such a cool dude. I became friends with his personal assistant at the time. His name is Jason Trevitz. I actually spent New Year's Eve with his personal assistant. And I have never seen him again, but just that experience to have made a goal in my mind. I want to meet this guy. I wanted to interact with him and to be that close to him. And then I did find out his best friend, one of his best friends, was Albanian. Luke Gocha, if I'm not mistaken, went to his wedding in Michigan. And I had spoken to him on the phone. Then I found out my cousin, James Barberi, was friends with him. So now it like gave me a little bit of like credibility with these guys. And just really cool, man. But these things can only happen if you're outgoing in life. I was scared as hell to meet Al Pacino. I was embarrassed. I was shy. I was like, what the fuck do I say to this guy?
Very humble. He's very humble.
Extremely humble. I met Bruce Willis 2 times in my life. Once was at the grand opening of the Brigada. He was not nice to me. The second time was at Remy, right behind the Hilton.
You seen that
Remy
shot?
restaurant?
You seen that shot with Bruce and I, right? You seen that shot with Bruce?
You were in it?
Yeah,
With
me
Bruce
and
Willis?
him. Yeah. Samir.
I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but to me, he was very cold and just wanted to get out of our face. Although at Remy, because I was with my coworkers and we were having a drink after work, the restaurant was empty. He just walked in, and I'm like, guys, I've met him once. Like, he doesn't want to be like, just don't bother him. He was nice enough to come over and shake everyone's hand. Everyone asked for a picture. I'm like, guys, just leave the guy alone. My friend wouldn't let go of his hand. I'm like, dude, let go of Bruce Willis's hand. Like, let the guy go. Like, he was with, he was with someone, and he just, listen, unless you're one of them, you don't get it. You're getting bothered. I've been starting to get stopped in the streets. I can kind of see where it can get kind of crazy. These guys get bothered every 2 seconds. So, like, I can't really judge them for that. I can't be mad at them for that.
Yeah, well, Bruce came to one of Samir's restaurants in Harlem. And
Row House.
Yeah, and he came out. Now, a lot of people, and please don't take this the wrong way, a lot of people say, oh, you really look like Bruce Willis, and I don't really care about that because I always think that people should feel good about looking about how they look, about them. They shouldn't really want to aspire to look like somebody else. But I do look similar, and when we did our picture, we did a picture out the front, and Bruce said, I'll give you my best Die Hard. It's a classic picture, man. I really like that
Actually,
photo.
I remember that picture.
Yeah, it's a cool picture, and he actually was very, very nice, and I hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, I heard about he's having some health issues, which made me so, because I think he's a phenomenal actor. I love his work, and like I said, you can't be mad.
He's the coolest, man. Bruce is the coolest. I remember he did a benefit. No, he was the Lifetime Achievement, and he gave this speech before Julia Roberts presented it, and it's just the coolest speech ever. He's a cool guy. But anyway, where were we? Where are we going to?
Your career in modeling, you did a 14-year run, and then kind of what happened after modeling?
Oh, yeah, but so that was it. When modeling started slowing down and I wasn't making the dough anymore, my only thing to go back to was the only other career I ever knew, which was hospitality. So who employs me but Alan Lynn at Norwood, and he employs me at Norwood, and I run Norwood. And
is that how you met Samir? Or?
Yeah, I met Samir because Samir had the place next door. And that's how I met Samir. That was a long time ago now. That was like, 2009, 2010?
That's right around when I met you. Honey had just closed, and I met both of you.
Yeah. Well, I finished at Norwood for a while. I did actually go back there around COVID time and help them out a little bit because I was having trouble with their membership. I remember one night, Scorsese had just finished the film at the Beacon Theatre with the Rolling Stones. And Mick at the time
Mick Jagger.
Yeah. He was holding a birthday party for his girlfriend, Loren Scott, who was a famous designer. Unfortunately, she died a few years later than that. But I remember being downstairs again in the reception area and Mick's upstairs with like 20-odd people, 30-odd people, and Martin Scorsese walks in with his wife. And now the PR's next to me, and they said, we don't have a seat for him. I said, well, you better find a seat for him. I said, because you didn't walk in here like just looking around for somewhere to go. So that was surprising to me that the PR didn't one act on the spot for Scorsese, who again, lovely man,
Legend, class act.
Yeah, but again, when he walked in, so humble, didn't expect anything, just happy.
I love people like that are on that, because I've dealt with both, and you have too. The prima donnas and the people that are like, no matter how big they are, no matter how famous they are, they're still human. They don't act like I'm better than the whole world. They understand that maybe not everyone's as fortunate, and people, you're fortunate, regardless of what's going on in their personal life. You're still, you're in a position of power, fame, wealth. There's a lot to be happy about, where people still have to deal with all the nonsense of life, and they don't have all the other benefits you're doing. I just hope, celebrities that are out there think about that sometimes, that I understand that you're the shit now and you're famous, and but people are out there wishing they could live a day in your life,
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, that was Norwood, and that was my way back into hospitality, and luckily enough, Norwood was at high level, and since then, I've stayed at a decent level.
Yeah, you were working at a place I love to go to, Bathtub Gin, for a while. Shout out to Dave Oz.
Dave Oz. It was Dave's birthday the other day. And
I posted him, and you posted him.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
I'm going to see him in 2 weeks.
Listen,
love the Bathtub Gin that they opened up on Melrose over there in L.A.
Yeah, a quick shout out to Dave, because, in these days, New York City is full of speakeasies. But when he started Bathtub Gin,
he started a trend.
Yeah, he started a trend, and look at it. And what a beautiful bar, and like, the amount of celebrities that go through Bathtub Gin as well, really.
And it's organic, man.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And like, so nowadays I'm at Analog, which is down in Greenwich and
Great spot.
Great spot. Very happy there. And again,
I love that back room.
Yeah, the back room's cool. I've just started a music series back there, which is going to go out in September. So I'm really happy about that. Got some great artists lined up for that. And
if you're watching this show, check out Analog on East 8th.
No, Analog's on. So Analog is
East 10th.
No, Analog is on West 8th Street.
Sorry, West 8th.
Yeah.
I was right with the 8th.
Yeah, no, Analog's on West 8th Street. No, you was right with the 8th. But yeah, no, it's a lovely bar.
1 block down is East, huh? I think it crosses over.
Or 5 over is East, but it's okay. You've been in New York all your life. You'll work it out.
Smushed. Well, if you're in the city, go to Analog, get a bite, get a drink, say hello to Gary, and tell him Bek Lover sent you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And
charge him double, Gary.
Yeah. So yeah, working with some great guys. We have some fabulous guests in. So yeah, very, very lucky. And again, going back to the whole start of this conversation, if I hadn't have failed at modeling in the beginning, I would never have had a career in hospitality. And my career in hospitality has been so rewarding, not only financially, obviously, but also just learning about people, watching people, the psychology of people, entertaining people. And as you know, I'm not, if I like somebody, I genuinely like them. Unfortunately for me in hospitality, if I don't like you, then you're going to probably know that too. But I've gained so much out of hospitality, Bek. Yeah, really.
Moral of this entire story, folks, what could be your biggest loss at the moment can lead to your biggest gain, can shift your whole paradigm, your whole reality. Like a quote from the Holy Quran, God says in that book, it may be a thing that you thought was bad for you was actually good for you. And something that you thought was good for you led to your disaster. But I have all knowledge and you don't. So if you're out there in a point in your life right now where things ain't going right, it could be because you're being shifted towards something that's going to make you great or bring you to an experience you could have never imagined once you actually get there. And the only way you'll ever know is to look backwards. And that's known as divine wisdom. Sometimes we don't understand. Then when we look back, we're like, okay, God, now I know why that happened to me. Would you say that's kind of what happened?
Is it? Do you believe in that then? Do you believe in what's meant for you?
I believe that there is the game board of life is rigged. You couldn't control to who you were born to. You couldn't control the fact that your father wasn't in your life. You had no say in that. So how's that free will? The free will you had, Gary, was to respond how you responded when these events and occurrences happened in your life. You didn't want your sister to pass. When she did, she did. You lost her. You had nothing you could do about it. When my brother passed away, there was nothing I could do about it. I could have, and I came close, brother, to just completely giving up on life. Like completely, like I was 3 years of darkness, brother. Like I don't know how I got out of it. I know how I got out of it because I believed in a higher power, and I kept saying inside, like, don't give up. It was literally a faint voice. And you know me, I was very extroverted when you met me. And suddenly I'm not talking anymore, and I'm introverted, and I can't even talk for years, brother. I lost my voice. Where I just didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to leave this room I stayed in all day. And so what I'm trying to say is, do I believe in divine wisdom, or what we would call destiny? I do. I believe the game board is rigged, but how you respond is your free will. It's your salvation or your destruction. You're the one that chooses at that point in time what it's going to be when these things happen to us that we have no control over. I could have been born to a filthy rich family or a poor family. I mean, what's to say it wasn't predetermined in that aspect? One of my favorite quotes, I think it was Rumi or Omar the Great, was, what is destined for you will reach you even if it be buried beneath the mountains. And what is not destined for you will not reach you even if it be between your two lips. And I got to say, you know, even with my podcast, this last year, I can't say I worked as hard as I should have. Not even close, to be honest. If I'm being honest with my audience, and they know I've been kind of off my own show for a little while now. Where, you know, you're a part of, you know, the next season. But amazing things happened to me that I did not expect would happen with the little bit of effort that I put in this year compared to what it should have been. And I can't say anything except, and the clip that made me famous was about God. Believe it or not. I mean, that thing has literally billions of views. I don't think it was an accident because I had to take the action to make the show. But that little boost there, I got to give it to the one above.
But, you know, just quickly, though, because I know we're running on time, but I sometimes don't think that they're directly related. Like, as I said earlier, I put a lot of effort in my 20s into music and stuff like that and spent a lot of money on it. I didn't do very well out of it. But when I went into modeling the second time, compared to what I got out of it, I put very little effort into it. I mean, I was just being me. But I got an amazing career for 14 years out of it. So I sometimes don't feel that they're directly related. I just think that if you're doing a positive thing and putting a positive energy into something, that somewhere along the line, it will pay off.
Intention.
Yeah. You know.
Folks, I am learning so much about my friend of over 15 years now. A lot of things I heard today were the first time I ever heard. And you got to hear them with me. And I hope you picked up some nuggets from this, because we had an extraordinary guest, Gary Spencer. Definitely want to get you back.
Thank you, man.
And the whole point of this is you're watching the Bek Lover podcast, where you might learn a thing or two about life. Till the next time, with my friend Gary Spencer.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.